السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. اسمحوا لي أن أعرف بنفسي. معكم الدكتور أحمد القطان، أستاذ مساعد في برنامج إدارة الأعمال ومنظم هذا السمينار الدولي. إن من دواعي سروري أن أرحب بكم جميعا، أنا وجميع زملائي في الجامعة العربية المفتوحة فرع الكويت في السمينار الدولي 2022، والذي نفتخر جميعا في الجامعة العربية المفتوحة فرع الكويت في احتضانه. إن الجامعة العربية المفتوحة تفتخر دوما باستضافة مثل هذه الفعاليات العالمية الهامة، وأثمن عليها الثقة الكبيرة التي منحني إياها الأستاذ الدكتور محمد السيد مدير الجامعة العربية المفتوحة وراعي هذا الملتقى. أيضا نتشرف أن أو السبب الأساسي في هذا الملتقى هو مجموعة إيتار. طبعا مجموعة كوناها فري تقريبا أكثر من ثلاث سنين. We offered many seminars, workshops, conferences and advice to all academic students and also doctors in all university and around the world. Also, we build a wide network around the world. So let me start with introduce the ITAR community and the guest speaker. So ITAR is the short of International Training and Academic Research, and the founder of ITAR is Dr. Ahmed Al-Qattan. Also the community is Dr. Hanan Al-Mawla from Bahrain University and Dr. Ahlam Al-Musallami from University of Newcastle. Also, I want to thank all the guest speakers for attending today and spend from their time and effort. Starting with Professor Khalid Husseini. Professor Khalid Husseini is a professor of accounting at the University of Portsmouth. He has over 2.5 decades of teaching and research experience at both undergrad and the postgraduate levels. He has a growing research reputation in the field of accounting and finance. He is working in the demand of corporate narrative, reporting, corporate governance, earning management, international financial reporting standard, corporate investment efficiency, corporate finance, Islamic accounting and finance. He has published 142, I think now it's more than 142 articles in peer-reviewed journals, and has written a number of books and chapters and edited a textbook on corporate governance and emerging economics. He also won the best paper award from the British Accounting Review in 2007 and the Journal of Risk Finance in 2012. He has supervised more than 48 PhD scholarship and has examined 106 PhD theses. And I am glad to be one of his PhD students when I were in University of Portsmouth. Also, let me introduce our second guest speaker is Professor Hafez Abdou. Professor Hafez is associate professor in accounting in the University of Nottingham. He has held the previous position of professor of accounting at Sheffield Hallam University, associate professor at Nottingham Trent University and the University of Sheffield. Professor Hafez is associate editor of a Journal of Applied Accounting Research and Journal of Financial Reporting and Accounting. His research focuses on accounting and taxation of the extractive industries, with the special focus on the oil and gas industry. His research appears in the leading journal, including Accounting Forum, Australian Accounting Review, Journal of Cleaner Production, Journal of Accounting in Emerging Economics, Energy Policy, Renewable Energy and Applied Energy. Also, I want to introduce our last guest speaker, which is Professor Colin Nitton. Professor Colin is an statistics accounting academic with over than 20 years of national and international teaching, research, leadership, and management experience in higher education. He is served in a number of senior roles, such as Associate Dean, Head of a Department, and Deputy Head of Southampton Business School in United Kingdom. His research focuses on how accounting, finance, and governance can drive a development and sustainability around the world, especially the developing world. And in the process, he has published over 100 output, in which more than 70% have appeared in the top 50 top journals and ABS and 4-star and 3-star and ABCD A-star journals around APG topics that have been cited widely by academics and public global media. Thank you everyone for attending today. We'll start with the Professor Khalid Husseini, and then after that directly Professor Hafid Abdu, and after that inshallah we'll open the floor for any question. So the question will be after the presentation of Professor Khalid and Professor Hafid, and then all of you, including Professor Colin Nitim, joining us in the Q&A session. Thank you so much again, and the floor is yours, Professor Khalid. But before that, as I said, this seminar is recorded or live on YouTube, and you can ask any question after the presentations. As I said, if you want to ask Dr. Khalid or Dr. Hafid in Arabic, also in English, but we prefer in English. Please don't try to question in the Q&A, sorry, in the chat, because the chat is keep rolling and we can't catch the chat. Okay, inshallah, this international seminar is sponsored by Arab Open University and will offer a certificate for all attending guests, inshallah. Thank you so much, and Professor Khalid, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Dr. Ahmed, can you give me the co-host so I can share my screen?
Sure, will do.
Okay, so first of all, thank you, Dr. Ahmed Al-Qattan and Dr. Hanan, Dr. Ahlam for organizing this session and for inviting me. And also many thanks to Arab Open University in Kuwait for sponsoring this session as well. I think I'm lucky today to have Professor Hafid Abdu and Professor Colin Nitim to support me to answer the question at the end of the session and also to learn from their experience. So today I'm talking about one of the most interesting topic in terms of international publication, which is about disk rejection. Because normally when we prepare a manuscript for a paper, we prepare this manuscript or the paper with a hope that this will get published. And we spend too much time in preparing the manuscript and also following all the guidelines by the journal. And once we submit, after a couple of days, we might get the disk rejection. So normally we need to ask ourselves why we got such disk rejection. What is the main reason? What are the main reasons for getting disk rejection, and how can we avoid a disk rejection? So in 20 up to 30 minutes, I will share my experience about disk rejection. And to answer the question how to avoid a disk rejection, I will start by asking 4 questions. First of all, what do we mean by a disk rejection? What does it mean? Secondly, how long does a journal disk rejection take? So after how many days or months or weeks you might receive a disk rejection? Most importantly, what are the main reasons which might lead to a disk rejection? Because if we understand the reasons, we can work hard to consider the comments related to these reasons and to prepare a manuscript, at least to avoid the disk rejection stage. Also, I love to answer the question, how should we reply to the journal after a disk rejection? And also, how should we react to such decision? And also for the paper itself, what next? What should we do after we get the disk rejection? Should we submit the paper to another journal directly, or should we keep calm and read the comments and improve the quality of the paper before the submission? And the last question will be how to avoid a disk rejection decision. So if we start by the first question, disk rejection, I need to tell the story, what happened when you submit your paper. So as soon as an author submit the paper to the journal, we have our editorial team which help us. First of all, they try to look at the paper and to see whether the author consider a paper and submit the paper which meets the aim and scope of the journal. Also, they look at the instructions, to what extent the author follow the instructions given by the journal. If your paper is not considering the instruction, for example, the editorial office will send the paper back asking you to follow the instructions. But they will check firstly whether you meet the aim and scope, if you follow the instructions or not. If not, they will ask you to follow the instructions. Also, the editorial office help in preparing the report for similarity to see whether you have similar text without attribution or not, and the percentage of this similarity. And also you look at the cover letter and to see whether you suggest some reviewers or you oppose some reviewers. Then they send a short report to the editor of the journal or the senior editor or the associate editor based on the journal policy itself. So first of all, as an editor or a senior editor or associate editor, you need to see any issues raised by the editorial office. And then you need to read the manuscript. So normally the associate editor or the senior editor reads the manuscript to make a decision. The decision will be whether to send the paper to the reviewers or not. So when we read the paper to make a decision whether to send the paper to the reviewer or not, we keep in mind the publication criteria. So first of all, we need to find out whether the author have a clear aim and objectives or not, whether the paper provide a novel contribution to the literature or not, whether the research motivation is clear or not, whether the research area or the research idea is important, significant, relevant to the reader of the journal or not, whether the author consider all relevant literature or not, to what extent the author identify the research gap and try his best to fill at least one of these gaps. We also look at the research method, what extent the research method sound and suitable for the research problem and also for answering the research questions. Then we look at the finding, we look at the interpretation of the finding, whether the author interprets the finding correctly or not. We look at the implication of the finding as well. And of course, the writing, the whole paper, the writing should be clear. So based on these publication criteria, if most of the answer is yes, the paper sounds good, have a clear objective, clear contribution, clear motivation, methodology is fine, implications of finding is fine, the clear writing. If the editor or the associate editor is satisfied with all these points, they will then send the paper to the reviewers. If not, if the paper is very weak or the paper has no contribution or the contribution is limited or there is no clear motivation or the writing up is not of high quality, in this case, the associate editor or the senior editor will recommend a disk rejection. So the topic today is about what happens if the answer to this point is no, no contribution, no clear motivation, not suitable research method, no comprehensive literature review. The answer here would be disk rejection. So what is disk rejection? What we mean by disk rejection? We mean by disk rejection that the paper will be rejected by the journal editor without being sent out for external reviewers. So the decision will be taken by the editor himself, or based on the comments raised by the associate editor or the senior editor. So what we need to know that disk rejection doesn't always mean that your paper is not good enough. It might be good, but it's disk rejected because it doesn't fit well with the journal. It doesn't fit with the scope of the journal. And editors believe that there is some benefit from disk rejection. One of these benefits of disk rejection is to avoid placing additional burden on the reviewers, to save the reviewers time, and at the same time to save the author time in the review process. So if the editor or the associate editor believes that the paper is weak, it will be much better to disk reject the paper earlier to save the time of both the reviewers as well as the authors. So the second question, how long it takes? This will be based on the journal itself. Normally, disk rejection is quicker than the normal rejection by the journal based on the reviewer comments. So sometimes, based on my experience, I found in one day I get a disk rejection, sometimes take a week or 10 days, but in other journals, it might be taking longer period of time. But normally, I would say on average between 1 day and 10 days will be the decision of disk rejection if the paper doesn't fit with the journal or if the paper have other reasons for disk rejection. So the most important question here, why the paper is disk rejected? If we understand the reasons why the paper is disk rejected, we can try our best to improve the quality of the paper before submission. So there are many reasons for disk rejection. One of the most important reasons is the fact that the manuscript or your paper doesn't meet the quality standards. The quality standards is related to the publication standards or the publication criteria. Normally, when you submit the paper, you need to be sure that you satisfy all the criteria of high quality publication. Like you have a good idea, new idea, novel idea, you have a contribution, a strong motivation. Also, you have a comprehensive literature review, you have interesting results, you have implications of your findings, and the paper is clearly written. So this is an example of the comment I received before from one of the journals. They mentioned that this was a disk rejection. They mentioned that once we receive a paper from any author, we try to ask several questions and look at your paper to see whether there is an answer in your paper or not. So they look at the idea, whether the idea is novel or not. They look at the theory, they look at the literature, they look at the method, they look at the results, whether the results are interesting, they look at the writing. So if the answer to all these questions were yes, they can send it to the external reviewers. But based on this last line, in our opinion, your paper doesn't satisfy some of the elements that reviewers are instructed to look at. So here they reject the paper because it doesn't meet the quality standard. So they try to save your time and also the reviewer time. So you as an author, what should you do? You need to look at an answer to all these questions in your paper. So you need to revise your paper to try to provide an answer to all the questions raised here by the journal. Also, a paper could be rejected because it's just simply a replication of other work. So you found interesting idea. Some authors use idea and they apply this idea, let's say in the United Kingdom. You'll say, okay, I will take the same idea and I will apply the same idea in another context, like Egypt, for example. So just replication without a clear motivation also could be a reason for a disk rejection. Sometimes the contribution is marginal. The contribution itself is not enough to get the paper published, especially if you target high quality journals. The paper should be well motivated. So if the paper is not motivated and the story is not clear, again, there is a risk of getting your paper desk rejected. Methodology as well is important, the literature. So as you can see, the associate editor or the senior editor will look at each component of the paper: the contribution, motivation, literature, methodology, the research question itself, the empirical problems related to the empirical side of your paper, the interpretation of the result, the language. All these issues are important and related to the quality standards of your paper. So if the paper is disrejected because of the quality standard, you will get some comments. You need to consider this comment to improve the quality of your paper. The other reason, and one of the most common reason, is the mismatch with the journal scope. So if you are doing a research on marketing, and if you target a journal like the British Accounting Review, of course, it will be rejected because marketing is out of the scope of the British Accounting Review. So sometimes you submit the paper and you get this sample of the rejection. Your manuscript judged not to be a clear fit with our mission, and therefore recommended that it is not sent out for a formal reviewer. So before submission, you need to be sure that your paper fit well with the journal scope or the journal aim. Otherwise, the paper will be desk rejected. Again, this is another two examples when I receive a desk rejection because of the scope. I target one journal. It is not accounting journal, it's management journal, but the editor replied back to me. He mentioned that the subject matter seen a better match for accounting journal. So he looked at the list of references I have, and he finds that all the reference from accounting journal. So he says that it is desk rejected because the article doesn't match his scope of the journal, the management, but it matches accounting journal much better. And also he observed that in my sample, I focus on MENA country, and he says that it might be better to target another journal which focus on emerging markets rather than the journal I submit to. Also, if you look at the second quotation, the citation of your paper are almost all from accounting information system literature, which also suggests that you have little contribution to research in the management area. So again, in this case, I target a journal, which is management journal, but based on the editor point of view, most of the citation from accounting or information system. So the paper is desk rejected, and the advice here was to target accounting or information system journals rather than management journal. The second reason for the desk rejection, when the associate editor or the senior editor gets the feeling that you are submitting a first draft, not a final draft. And this can be observed by reading the paper. We can see that the paper is very early stage. So we can see a lot of grammar mistake, a lot of points that need more discussion. So the paper is under development, and the author need to work to improve the quality of the paper. So one of the comments we received before the first paragraph, they mentioned that the editors have decided not to continue with the review process for your submission. Here, they mentioned, while the topic is of interest and within the scope of the journal, the editors have suggested that the paper needs substantial development and increased level of rigor, and it might be worthwhile to consider exposing this paper to research seminars and conferences to obtain valuable feedback. So they got the feeling from the style of our writing or the many mistakes or many incomplete story in our paper that we are submitting a first draft. What we expect from authors to submit a final draft rather than first draft. So they give us an advice that the paper is within the scope of the journal, but it would be much better to present this paper elsewhere in a conference or a seminar to get some feedback to improve the quality of the paper, because they believe that it is it's an early stage this paper. Also, the second paragraph mentions that we decided to reject this paper by DISC. After reading the paper, we saw that the paper is not appropriate in the present form to send to reviewers. And they give us some comments that we need to work to make the paper much better and to be a final version which is ready for submission. So the advice here, don't submit any first draft. Try, after you finish your first draft, try to present in a workshop or in seminars, or share that draft with colleagues who are experts in the area to get some feedback to improve the quality of the paper before submitting to a journal. And again, another quotation here which mentions that the paper is too under development to be likely to meet the journal standard in terms of the contribution made. So this is the second reason, submitting a first draft, not a final draft, leads to a DISC rejection as well. The third reason, it's about out of the scope of the author. So it's above your control. Sometimes you target a journal, but you get the DISC rejection quickly within a day or two. They mention that we are very sorry, we decline to publish your paper or consider your paper for publication because we receive a large number of submissions and we have very limited space for articles. So here they are very selective to accept articles and send articles for reviewers. So they mentioned here, for example, after due consideration, we decline to publish the manuscript. Please remember, we receive over 600 submissions each year and have space for only about 80 manuscripts. So often even papers with merits are rejected due to space limitation. You can do anything if the paper is rejected because of space limitation, but I'm sure that if you present a high quality paper, you can get a space even if the journal have a lot of submission, because they will be very selective to select high quality papers. So low quality or medium quality will be DISC rejected in this type of journals. Also, sometimes the paper is DISC rejected if you resubmit a rejected paper as the same journal. So suppose that you have submitted a paper to journal X and journal X reject your paper because of some reasons. And if you work on these reasons and try to revise the paper and submit it again to journal X, they might DISC reject the paper. So if you get a rejection, and the editor might invite you to resubmit a new paper after major development in your paper. Sometimes you get a rejection and you get the message that you are not allowed to resubmit the same paper again. Some journal policy don't allow resubmission of the rejected manuscript. So, for example, in this paper, in this journal, we got a rejection. We worked on the paper, we revised the paper, and we resubmit the paper again to the same journal and say resubmission are not permitted at our journal. So the paper is rejected again. So here, be careful when you resubmit the rejected manuscript to the same journal, be sure that the journal accepts resubmission. The other reason here is the similarity, plagiarism, including self-plagiarism. Sometimes you work with some colleagues and you work it hard, you get some text from different sources, including your own work. Sometimes by mistake, let's say a human mistake, you forget to write the citation. So when we put this manuscript on Turnitin, we get a percentage which refer to how much you got from other sources without attribution. So here, this is one of the major reasons you can get your paper rejected or DISC rejected because of the similarity. And these are two examples of the letter you can get from the editor. I regret to inform you that I have decided to reject your manuscript as a reproduction of previous published material, and therefore not to send your manuscript to our reviewers for their comments and evaluation. If you look at the second paragraph, again, same message. There is a red flag on your manuscript due to significant repetition of earlier published paper, including but not limited to, and then they will start giving you some examples. So my advice here, before you submit any paper, especially if you work with other colleagues, please try to check the similarity using Turnitin or any other software to be sure that the percentage is lower than 20 or lower than 15 will be acceptable. So to conclude, why paper desk rejected? There are many reasons for desk rejection. I would say that the mismatch with the journal aim and scope is one of the common reasons for desk rejection. If you don't follow the journal guidelines, your paper might be desk rejected as well. If the paper has no significance, no importance, or no novel contribution, again, this will be one of the reasons for desk rejection. Theoretical consideration and support as well, adequate connection with key articles, especially those published in the same journal. Some problems related to the empirical part of your paper, especially if you are a quantitative person, like endogeneity, sample bias, omitted variables, and so on. Also, the paper could be rejected at the early stage because of the problems in the interpretation of the findings, or the poor quality of your writing, or plagiarism, or the ethical issues, like submitting the same paper to the two journals at the same time. And of course, duplicate and previously rejected submission is not welcome by some other journals. So these are the main reasons that we need to think about avoiding this reason, and this point need to be considered in the paper to improve the quality of the paper before submission. So the first question, how to reply to the editor when you get a desk rejection. So you might ask yourself, should I reply to the editor when I get the desk rejection? I would say no, it's not required. It's not one of the key requirements to respond to a rejection. Just stop sending any email, that's fine. Or if you feel that the editor send you some useful feedback to improve the quality of your work, at least a thank you note or a thank you email would be sufficient to say, thank you for your time in giving me some comment to improve the quality of your work. So don't be too upset if you got desk rejection, and please don't send any aggressive email to the editor. He is doing the job, and I think he did it right, and he sent you some useful comment to improve the quality of your paper. So how to respond to the editor after the rejection? You can simply say, thank you for your valuable comment. I shall go through them for this paper and also for future papers. And many thanks for giving me the opportunity to submit my paper to your journal. I wish you all the best, something like that. Just a very simple thank you email will be sufficient to reply to the editor. But for your paper, what should you do after you receive the rejection? You need firstly to understand the reason for the rejection. If the reason because the manuscript doesn't fit with the journal, in this case, when you search for another journal, be sure that you select the right one. You select the journal which fit well with the scope and aim of your paper. And also, if you receive some comments from the editor, try your best to consider some of these comments. So please consider comments raised by the editor before submission. The risk is that some authors, once you get the rejection, submit the paper to another journal directly without making any improvement or any consideration to the comments raised by the editor. These comments are not mandatory, but of course, this comment will improve the quality of the paper. So at least try your best to address some of these comments before submitting to another journal. So last point, in this case, based on our understanding, how can we avoid the disk rejection? First of all, to avoid the disk rejection, please try your best to find the right journal for your article. And to find the right journal for your article, my first advice is that you need to check the list of references in your paper. Once you check the list of references in your paper, you will find out which journal has been cited most. So you need to start by the journal that is highly cited in your paper. So let's say journal X is cited 5 times, journal Y cited 3 times. If I'm in your position, I will start by journal X because it's cited most in the paper. Before submission to the journal which highly cited in your paper, you need also to look at the aim and scope of the journal. You need to be sure that your paper match the aim and scope of the journal. So if you open the journal website, read information about the journal, especially the scope and aim of the journal. If your paper fit well, this could be a target journal for your paper. So this is the first advice, try to find the right journal. The second advice, try to be aware about the journal preferences. Some journals have some preferences which are different from other journals. So for example, if you look at Journal of Accounting and Economics, you will find that most of the research in Journal of Accounting and Economics is market-based accounting research. Majority of the papers here is market-based accounting research. So if your paper is not market-based accounting research, you can't target Journal of Accounting and Economics. So this is like a general comment from me. Also, some journals have a special interest. So if you look at critical prospects in accounting, they look at critical papers only. So if your paper is empirical, you will not have a great chance to get your paper sent to the reviewers for the critical prospects in accounting. Accounting Historical Journal is interested in accounting history only. So if you have some empirical analysis, interesting regulatory result, it doesn't fit with Accounting Historical Journal. So you need to look at the specific orientation of the journal, also the special interest of the journal, and the preference as well. So if you look at the Accounting Review and Journal of Accounting Research, you will find that almost all the research published in this journal use US data. So if you don't have US data, you might have no chance to get your paper sent to the reviewers in the Accounting Review and Journal of Accounting Research. Some other journals are open to all areas, so you can look at these journals. So by looking at the different journals in your field, you can find out the specific orientation, the special interest, the preferences, and if the journal have a broad interest. So you need to be aware about the journal preference before submitting to the journal. Also, you need to be aware about the journal style itself. So before submitting the paper to the journal, you need to look at the published articles in this journal. So let's say review the last 5-year papers published relevant to yours to see the best practice, how best you can present the paper to have like a quite similar quality to the paper published in this journal. Also, you can ask other colleagues for about their experience with the journal. And before submission, be sure that you follow the instructions to the author. After you follow the instructions to the authors, also check the editors and associate editors' publication. Cite their work if their work is relevant to yours. And remember that you need to reference paper from the journal you are submitting to. So this also will increase the chance to get your paper at least sent to reviewers. The final point, you need to write a good manuscript. And the good manuscript, it's a big topic. And I just summarize here the main points you need to highlight. So if you have a title, you need attractive title. This attractive title should reflect the main contribution of the paper and the main story of the paper. For the abstract will be 100 words in some journals, 200 others, or 250. So you need a short abstract which reflect the objective of the paper, the main methodology, the main findings, and the contribution or the implications of the finding. You need also the keyword which helps the author to find your paper if the paper is accepted. So if you look at the introduction, there is some elements in the introduction that should be clear. So your research problem should be clear. Your research importance should be clear. You should have a clear objective in your paper. You should have a clear research questions. You should have a clear research motivation. If you look at the specific context, why this context? If you believe that there is a relationship between Y and X, which theory support the relationship between Y and X? If you look at a specific period of time, why is this period of time? If you look at a specific industry sector, why this sector? So always ask yourself why to get the research motivations right. Research contribution is very important to highlight the research contribution of the paper. And you will not be able to highlight the research contribution unless you identify the research gaps. So you need to find out the key articles in your area. You need to identify the research gaps, and then you need to identify the contribution to the literature or the methodology or the method. Also, you need to summarize your key findings in the introduction and then a short paragraph about the structure of the paper. If you look at this following section, the literature review, you need to write a literature review in a critical way. So you need critical literature review, you need up-to-date literature, you need to cover theoretical literature, empirical literature, as I mentioned, especially those published in the journal you are targeting. From the literature, you need to identify the research gaps, and then you need to explain which of these gaps will be filled in your paper. After that, if you are a quantitative researcher, you need to develop your research hypothesis well, using relevant theories, literature, and the context as well. Research method is the most important part of your paper, so you need, again, to talk about the context. So you might talk about the context as a motivation in the introduction. You can have a separate section about the context of your study. And in this case, you will not need to repeat the same information in the research method. But for the research method, you need to explain how did you choose your sample? What's your sample selection criteria? If you focus on a specific sample period from, let's say, 2000 to 2022, you need to explain why you started by 2000, why you ended by 2022. So you need to justify the sample period. You need also to justify the research method used. You need to clearly explain how did you collect your data. You need to provide a clear definition of your variables and how you measure each of these variables. You need also to clearly mention to the source of data. So clear information here will help the reader to understand the process you have followed to answer the research question, and also they will have some credibility in the findings you are presenting after this section. Then the empirical result, you present some tables or charts to show that what's your finding, whether you accept or reject your research hypothesis, and the answer to the research questions raised. After the research, the empirical analysis, you need to do some additional analysis to convince the reader that the findings are correct. So the findings are not biased because of a specific method or specific variables. The most interesting section and the most needed one also, the discussion. So after you present the result and after you do the additional analysis, you need to discuss your findings. So you discuss your findings by linking the findings with the theories, with the literature, and with the context. And the most important thing, when you discuss your findings, you need to focus on the new findings compared with the existing literature to highlight the contribution of your paper. Then the conclusion. In the conclusion, you have a brief summary of the key findings. You discuss the practical and theoretical implication of the findings, then the research limitation, and we will suggest some ideas for future research. And finally, you have to present the references. here my advice that the references should be from top-ranked journals to increase your chance to get your paper published in top-ranked journals. And you need to be sure that you follow a style consistently in writing the reference. Before submitting your paper to the journal, I mentioned that you need to share the paper with some colleagues to get some feedback, or at least to present the paper in a conference or a seminar to get some feedback, to be sure that you are not submitting the first draft. So normally, if you get some feedback to improve the quality of the paper, you will write an acknowledgement. In this acknowledgement, you will say that we thank Professor, let's say, Khaled Hosseini for giving feedback on this paper. This will increase the credibility and will also show that you are not submitting the first draft. You have done the first draft, you share the first draft with other experts, and you get some feedback. You improve the quality of the paper based on the feedback you have received from the expert. Before submission, be sure that you proofread the paper so there is no English errors or English mistakes. So this will increase the chance of getting your paper accepted. Last advice before I end the session is that to read and learn. One session, 30 minutes, like what I'm doing now, is not enough to learn the publication process and how can you avoid disk rejection. You need to learn more. So I found that it's very valid and valuable resources to look at published journals. In published journals, they have very interesting articles about publication. For example, this year, I found in the International Journal of Information Management, I found very interesting article. It's an editorial article. They ask a very simple question to 6 or 7 editors, how to develop a quality research paper and avoid a journal disk rejection. So if you read this paper, you will learn from these experts in international publication the best way to write a good quality or high quality paper, and also how to avoid disk rejection. Also, this article, another example, why you don't get published, an editor view. So here you will listen or you will read from the editor his opinion about how to avoid rejection in general or disk rejection in particular. This article as well, I found very useful, getting published, achieving acceptance from reviewers and editors. Again, some tips you need to know in order to increase your chance to get your paper published. This very, very unique and very useful article as well. It gave us 100 research rules of the game. How to make your research world-class, how to successfully publish in top international referred journals. This kind of published articles in journals help a lot in improving your publication skills, and it gives you very useful tips to improve the quality of your work and to avoid disk rejection. I hope you found the session very useful, and I'm looking forward to your comments at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Khaled, for your insightful and very informative presentation. We have so many questions that we will attempt, inshallah, at the end of the session as we planned. So thank you so much. It's been really interesting and very informative. We will move now to Professor Hafez. He's with us? Yes. Okay, perfect. So Professor Hafez, we welcome you on board again, and the floor is yours. Please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hanan. Thank you, Professor Khaled, for this very interesting session. Very useful information and some very good tips. We always learn from you, Professor. So let me just try to share my slides with you. Right. Can you see my slides? Can just someone confirm?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, great. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So as Professor Khaled was rightly suggesting, to avoid disk rejection you need to do some homework. Try to get someone to read your drafts, give you feedback, try to do something, workshops, conferences, but because we in academia, and sometimes we work in isolation and we feel we are lonely, we need help, we need support, and we need the right people to be on our sides. So one of the solutions is to network. And this is what I'm going to talk about this evening. So first of all, I'd like to thank ITAR and the Arabic Open University for inviting me to this session, and also to thank my associate, Dr. Irina Shcherba, for helping me to just prepare these slides. So to start with, in this session, hopefully it's not going to be too long a session, I'm going to cover these points. So let's start with the background. Being bright and scholarly gifted is not enough to make it to the top of the academic career ladder. So we need something else. It's not enough to be hardworking. It's not enough to be very bright. In academia, we need support from societies, individuals, and sometimes institutions. So in addition to performance and productivity, cooperation and network relations do determine the path of academic careers, and that's a true fact. So being well connected, carrying out research in cooperative partnership, triple your chances of attaining a professorship. In academia, everybody wants to be a professor. We know professorship can be more than one level, 1, 2, 3, ABC, or etc. But every academic dream to be a professor. So it takes time, it takes effort, but there are some young people, and here I can safely refer to Professor Khalid and Professor Collins. They were two of the youngest professors in probably in the UK or in the world. So they've obviously, I can safely say, they followed the right path. And what it is, it's connectivity, it's connection, and it's networking. So building a professional links that helps you to advance your career based on your own merits and qualification. And also networking is not a narrowly focused strategy just to advance your career. It's something else. It's a broader approach to see the value in developing friendly relationships with people like yourself, academics, researchers, and sometimes professional from industries and services. So whether you are in teaching and or research, whether you are naturally introvert or extrovert, or whether you are at an early or late stage of your research career, it's very important to develop and improve your networking skills. And that's something sometimes we, academic, lack. And we need to learn how to build a network, improve the network, sustain it, and make benefit of it, which is key to our success. So why do we want to network? What's the point of getting to know people? I know my research area, I know my literature, I know the journals I have to read, or the books I need to refer to. So why do I need to get to know people or get people to be involved actually in my work or get to involved in other people's work? Simply because there are lots of benefits. And some of these professional networks are filled with opportunities that may improve both our work quality and job satisfaction. So when you know more people, when people know you, they can present you with opportunities. It could be workshops, it could be job opportunities, it could be publishing opportunities, it could be grant writing opportunities, etc. So academics, we academics, with an expanded network have an edge when it comes to grants. Every one of us wants to generate research money. We need to be seen as generating money, but without networking, our opportunity is small. We need to publish. We need to get awards. We need invitations to speak in public lectures like this lecture, in conferences, in workshops. We need job offers. And also, every one of us wants promotion. So all of these are linked to one single string, which is networking. Therefore, some may see networking as making friend taxing and distasteful. So if I know someone and he or she keep asking me to do them favors, examine their students, read their drafts, or comment on their academic work, etc., but they are not helping. When I approach them for help, for support, they are not helping. So in this case, it's this friendship is taxing me, and that's not working. So obviously, in such a case, I would stop communicating with this colleague, whoever they are, wherever they are, unless if they look after me the same way I look after them, then we both will benefit from this friendship or professional friendship, if you like. So tendency to refrain from networking can limit scientists from reaching their full potentials. I can easily give you an example of myself. When I started my academic career, like 600 years ago, I used to believe that writing a paper by myself is much better and rewarding than writing papers or grants with colleagues. And I can admit, I was completely wrong. And I learned the lesson the hard way. And now I know it's easier to write papers with colleagues. You learn from them, you share the efforts, and you collect the same credits. So you share the same credits. You don't lose anything when you publish or you work with professional friends or academic contacts. So networking, for sure, it improves your scholarship. Your contribution to knowledge requires incrementally building on the work of others. Connecting with other researchers in your field is crucial for being aware of other research going on around you. So when you attend other people's workshops and presentations, you know what's going on. Things are not limited, and you can't get everything from reading research articles. You need to listen to others. You need to attend workshops, conferences. You need to talk to people about what they've done, how they do things, and what's the best ways to enhance your career sometimes, or how they enhance theirs, and then you follow their steps. So your research should not be just for yourself, for your own personal consumption. It is important to make sure that you promote your research, your outcomes, and encourage people to engage with it. Networking is key here. Without networking, people will not contribute to your success, to your research, and to your grants applications. Networking allows you to connect with others and build a body of contacts, which is, that's the general fact. This ability to draw on a range of contacts is often a stated requirement in person specifications for some academic jobs. So in some cases, some institution wants to see how easy you are to be dealt with, and that will be reflected in your academic network. Now, how to network? How networking aids research and researchers. So there are a lot of benefits, but what are these benefits to research and researchers? Networking helps researchers to access resources, information, and support. When I know someone who's good in something, I can, if they know I respect them and I'm there to support them, when I approach them for support, they will offer it to me. I am myself a qualitative researcher, but it does not mean I don't publish quantitatively based studies. How I do it? I will do the qualitative bit, and my contacts, who will be sometimes, many times, always willing to work with me. If they are quantitative researchers, they will do the quantitative bit. So in this case, I cooperate with others, they help me, I support them, and we publish good quality papers. Networking provides researchers with opportunities for learning sources of information, salary growth, innovation, and a means of getting things done. Sometimes we, in the journey of promotion, we do need references. And if we don't know people who we trust, it's difficult to get the promotion approved. So we need to know people. We need people to know us to be able to write references and be willing to write references to us when we need them. So networking improves both quality of your research and also job satisfaction. Networking helps us researchers to spot job opportunities and helps them to advance in their career. So a number of characters for effective network. Building a network is easy job if we know how to do it. Sustaining it may not be as easy. And we have a duty of care here towards our contacts. So the character of effective network is based on a long-term connection. It's not a hit and run. If you need my support, I'm more than happy to support you, but you would expect me sometimes to come back to you and say, oh, can you do me a favor? So if you say no, or if you ignore me, fine, I'll find somebody else. But when you need me, I'm not going to be there for you. So it's mutual connectivity and benefit. Systematic maintenance of contact. So not only when you need them, make sure you build your network, you sustain it, you expand it, and you know how to maintain it. Building trust between the parties to the network. So as we know, trust is king. And constant expansion of the academic network, the more the better. The more people you know, the better, because that will expand your knowledge. It will help you to expand your opportunities. And at the same time, it will open new doors for you. How to build an effective academic network? There are many ways. I can't sit here and theorize stuff to you. Everyone has his own style. But be intentional about getting to know your challenges and be helpful to, be intentional about getting to know your colleagues and be helpful to them. Be helpful to them. If you don't examine your their students, they won't examine your student. If you don't review their papers, they won't review your drafts. If you don't reply to their request for references, they will ignore you when you need them. So you can't just reach out when you need something. So selfishness is not going to do any good here. Everyone has potential to influence your career and teach you something new. And that applies to your senior colleagues, junior colleagues, admin, gatekeepers, whoever around you. So everyone has potential to give you something or benefit you in somehow. Try to meet scientists, industrialists, business managers, reporters, artists, others via social platforms such as ResearchGate, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and even Instagram. So make sure you are active on social media platforms. Making friends in academia can be truly enjoyable. It can be difficult sometimes, but it's really enjoyable, beneficial, and powerful tool for career advancement. So one of the things we can do, and as academics, we attend workshops and conferences. In a conference, many years ago, when I started attending conferences, I would go get my coffee, stand in a corner, and wait for people to come and talk to me. And that was the wrong approach. So in a conference, it's your opportunity to meet people, to expand, to build networks, to expand them. So talk about papers, what your paper is all about, what's your research interest, what's your current project, which journals you target, what's your methodology, etc. So this is how you get people interested to talk to you. And also talk about your own. Try to make academic friends. Researchers can be lonely, as I said, and isolated. So use the opportunity in attending conferences to build friendships with other colleagues. Be prepared get your business cards, computer, phone, etc. So you can send emails, notes, and connect via social media platforms. Now there is a here. I'm not sure how accurate is this, but I tried it and it worked very well for me. So a group of 4, if you are in a conference or a workshop, if you want to get to know people, and there are more than 3 people talking at the same time in one group, my advice: don't join them. If you want to get to know one or more than one of them, but if you want to listen to the conversation, that's fine. Because when people are engaged in discussion, they don't pay attention much to the faces. They pay attention to the flow of the discussion. Follow up after the conference. Make sure you follow up with your new contacts, email, text messages, etc. Just to say, it was nice meeting you. Hope we can do something, online meeting, or whenever you can meet in person. It's absolutely good because that will strengthen your network. Some tips for building an academic network. Some of these tips can be simple. Join association or a learned society, so you get to know people, you know their interest, and you see who shares the same interest, so you can build network with them and the group together. Get involved at conferences, and get involved at conferences does not mean go and attend conferences. Go and attend conferences, but get involved in discussion, in activities, get involved in building network, listen to what's being said, try to benefit from others, and try to help others as well. Take up workshops and masterclass opportunities. If you are invited for something, I would say when you can, don't ignore the opportunity. Opportunities do not come most often, so if someone invited you to deliver a talk, take it an opportunity, because you can meet new people, you can build and sustain your network and expand it. Develop a social media presence, so comment on posts, etc., but be very careful, because negativity only bring negativity. When you comment on people's posts, make sure it's positive comments or don't comment at all. Otherwise, people will perceive you in a negative way. Learn how to say hi with a smile. We are academics, we are deep thinkers, and unfortunately, sometimes we don't know how to smile. So it's key to learn how to say hi with a smile, and that opens doors. Make yourself visible, and that's key. Make yourself visible. Let people see what you are doing, who you are, stand out of the crowd. Now, a last word to say, a key point in any networking relationship is mutuality. People may be willing to help you for all sorts of reasons, but a strong incentive is when you can, in some way, help them to meet their own goals. So it's not, as I said, hit and run. Externally examining their doctorate students, reviewing their papers, commenting on their bid applications, discussing things with them academically, etc. So that helps a lot. Now, networking can be difficult, can be tough. There are some books. Taking the work out of networking is a good book. The other book is Networking for People Who Hate Networking. I read part of this book and I quite enjoy it. I do recommend it. It's available online. And reading these books, sometimes it showed us what we do, how we think, and what can we do to enhance our way of thinking and the way we connect with people. All of this helpful for enhancing the quantity and the quality of research work and other academic work as well. So thank you very much. That's my session. I hope this was interesting and useful. If you have any questions, please do let me know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Hafid, also Dr. Khalid, for your useful and informative presentation that I am sure everyone interested in watching all of you presentation. So now we'll start, or we open the floor for any question. Please, anyone, if you have any question, just raise your hand and you can ask Professor Colin Nitem, Professor Khalid Husseini, and Professor Hafiz Abdu.
Dr. Ahmed, can we have some comments from Dr. Colin?
Sure. Professor Colin.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Khalid. Thank you, Hafiz, and I'm not sure. Good evening to all of you, or good morning, or wherever you are. But I think mostly good evening. A really a privilege to be here today, especially with Khalid and Hafiz. And apologies, my son is making noise in the background, and the experience that, of course, and the information that you've received so far about desk rejection, avoiding desk rejection, writing good papers, and also networking. And what I would just say quickly is two things about and they are actually related. One is on the desk rejection, be realistic. So know the quality that you can write up to, and then maybe target journals in that category. And then as you develop over time, you improve yourself, you develop your skill set by networking and by collaborating, as Hafiz have said, you become better. I mean, I started by publishing in the African Journal of Finance, and it wasn't ranked. Now it's ranked 1-star, but it wasn't ranked. And this is still the best paper, the paper that I enjoyed most when it was accepted. And I liked it so much, it motivated me, and I tried to publish in another one in a 1-star journal, and it was a lot of hard work. It was really hard work, but I did it, and then I learned, I published in a 2-star, and then I learned and I published in a 3-star, and gradually I increased my skill set. I mean, some people will say this is a wrong approach, but in my view, this is the way to go. So be realistic in terms of the target, and that may help you in terms of having your publication. And then sometimes you have to be very lucky, right? You have to be lucky. But lucky is related to networks, which Hafiz talked about. So the only thing that I will talk about, I'll say about networking is, add to it is be generous. Okay, so when I talk about luck, for example, your paper goes to Khalid, for example. Khalid, we know, is very generous. The paper may not be, even if it's supposed to be rejected, might get a revised rejection resubmit rather than a reject, right? Yeah. But if it comes to me, Collins, very harsh, quickly is rejected, right? So that is the other part of it. But remember, luck also comes from knowing people, the networks, and so on. So it's not just isolated. And also try to give back yourself, right? I think Hafiz talked about that. It's not just one-sided. You also volunteer something. And when you collaborate in the network, try your best. Because if you don't try your best, then you publish one paper or get one grant, well, that's the end of it. Nobody work with you anymore. I think I'll end here and I'll let people ask questions. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Colin, for your comments and feedback. Appreciate it. Saif, unmute your mic, please, so we can hear you.
Yeah. Yes. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Hi, gentlemen, and who's in conversation. I am a student in Arab Open University. I have a question. That do you with me or no? Hello?
Yeah, we are with you. Yeah, go on.
Yes. Dr. Ahmed, I ask about the relationship between networking and public. The relationship with the public is very important. It's getting together, like bound their ideas, especially in public work.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
What I think is what I get it from the lecture. What I understand about the lectures, that all doctors, thankful that they give our best information. That's it.
Thank you so much, Said. Thank you.
Safe, yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Ahmed, can I just have a comment, please?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, Professor Khalid mentioned if you get a rejection, when we work on a paper and it's get rejected, either desk rejection or rejection after being reviewed, it's a harsh experience. It's not easy to receive, after you work for a long time on a paper and you submit it, you have a big hope that the paper is going to be accepted with amendments or without amendments. It's your hope is it's going to be accepted, and then you receive a rejection decision. Now, this is harsh, it's difficult, it's stressing, but what I want to say is rejection is part of the process. Getting rejected is part of the process. Now, I can give a tip to everyone, which I used. So when you get a rejection, either it's a desk rejection or a rejection after having a review, don't do anything. Wait till at least you calm down. Think of what you are going to write, how you are going to write back to the editor. Come to your computer, write the most horrible, put all of your emotion in that email, write it down, but don't press send. So it's that's the key thing. Don't send it, because if you do send it, then that will cause too much damage. And as Professor Khalid said, editors, associate editors are doing their jobs. So it's not easy, but if we understand getting rejection decision, it's just part of the process. It makes life easier. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Hao. But I prefer in hard copy. Maybe it will be better than email. We don't know if it's sent it by mistake. Dr. Mohammed.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muhammad Aslan, and I'm from Pakistan. Currently, I'm in China doing PhD from Xi'an University. My question is related to that. After getting rejection from a journal, editor reject your paper, that when we are going to submit to another journal, he will ask that your paper is rejected from this journal. So I want to know that how, like, you can justify the connection between journal to journal and publisher to publish, that how they know each other that this man has submitted paper in your journal, and after getting rejected, is submitting in my journal. Like, how they build their network, how is their networking work?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think they are not connected. Once you get a rejection from journal A, it is your right to submit to journal B. So journal A will not communicate with the other journal saying that this paper is rejected before from our journal. So don't worry about this issue at all. And also you don't need to mention in the cover letter anywhere that this paper is rejected from journal A. Just submit as a new submission to the journal, and that's it.
What about you, Professor Colin?
Yes, the only thing that I wanted to add to this, to Khalid's point, is that because the reviewers may be similar, so sometimes they especially if you went out for review and you did not address the comments, and the chances are that if you have, Khalid talked about, how many references are, maybe 5 from one particular journal and another 5 from another 3 from another journal, and so on. These 5 or 7 articles might be related. So maybe 1 or 2 few review authors. And most editors, or a good number of editors and associate editors, the way they send the paper out is They look at the references and they send it to the popular, the most cited people. And so the chances are that although the paper from A, journal A, rejected, to B, unrelated, but reviewer from B will say, well, this paper was at journal A and I saw it and they have not made any corrections and I'm angry, rejected immediately. So so I think it's very important that, as Khalid said, you do some revisions or amendments to the paper once you get a rejection. At least try your best to address, not all of them, but at least as much as you can before you resubmit. So that if it goes to the same reviewers, or even it can go to the same editor or from a journal A or BA who happen to be the expert reviewer. And so I think this is the only way, the only reason why you may be worried about it. Otherwise, Khalid is right. There's no really link between journal A and B, and you don't need to say it's been rejected. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Colin. Professor Hafid, do you have any comment?
Yeah, it's similar to what my colleague said. It's sending a paper to a journal. It's very similar. If you just think of you are selling a product. So if one company or one shop said, no, we are not interested for many reasons, another shop may be interested. Even if 2 shops, 3 shops said, no, we don't want it, we don't have money, we don't have a space, etc. That's fine. There is a buyer for your paper, for your product, for your thoughts. So try again, don't give up. Always use, when you have any feedback from any journal, from any colleague, from anyone, not your in-laws, if I want to say, then use these feedback and enhance your work. That's how it works.
Thank you. I hope Mohammed Arslan, the professor, answer your question. Thank you so much. Ahlan. Okay, Dr. Hanan.
Yes.
This is Hai Hong. Go on.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, you can hear you.
First of all, my name is Hai. I'm currently a doctoral student in climate finance and sustainable finance from Massey University, New Zealand. Thank you so much to the speaker today for sharing a very good lesson, and I'm very happy to meet the speaker very first time on Zoom. I just want to say my thought that I agree with Professor Colin's point that when we got rejected from a journal, before we sending it to another journal, we need to very careful to consider thoroughly the point that reviewer gave us last time. But I just have the question, just a thought that sometimes how we can, we have all available information on each journal, we can search it online, but sometimes we are quite not simple to define exactly the scope of the journal. Even we have read the regulation, we have read the policy on the journal, but sometimes we not perfectly defining the exact code for our paper. So that's why I would love to hear from our speaker that whether what the tip or we can mitigate the problem for our future submission to journal with the right scope, with the right research team. Yes, that's my question.
Okay, thank you for your question. Is it directed to one of the professors or anyone could answer that?
Yeah, I can take that.
Okay, please.
Yeah, very good question. Thank you. It's this is where networking will help. So sometimes we struggle. We believe a certain journal is good fit for our articles, but then if we check the scope and other specification of the journal, we start to sometimes suspect, is it a good fit or not? So this is where the network will work. So check with your colleagues, check with people who can advice, give it to a colleague to read and to advise you and to help you to decide on the right submission. So it's as simple as this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your advice. Thank you.
Dr. Colin, if you want to add something.
I just wanted to say, I think Hafiz has put the main point, which is that working with different people can help. And in this case, I think about not just you can in terms of networking and collaborations, there is a vertical and horizontal one, right? So vertical one is, like me working with Khalid, right? Khalid is a senior. If you're not in that kind of relationship, it is expected, right? Naturally for me to do more, and then he knows exactly what is going on and provide the guidance. But also you can also have a horizontal one, which is your own colleagues and you work together. That is fine. That could be local or nationally, but also internationally. Because these ways, if you have a national or your local or even your university or department colleagues, working with them is great. But also think about working with other colleagues nationally or within the region, but more broadly internationally. By doing this, you really enhance your chances of publishing and identifying the right journals and so on. Let me share one quick comment. For 2 years running, we in Southampton here, we try to identify why we cannot publish in Journal of Accounting Economics. We try to identify why we cannot publish in the Journal of Accounting Research. We try to identify why we cannot publish in Journal of Accounting Review, Accounting Review, for example. And so we decided to invite all of these editors. It was very costly, normally from Harvard and Yale and all of these people. And look, all of them, when they came, they were very frank. They said, well, if we know you, we cut a slack for you. It's not that it's going to be easy, but because we know you, even if it needs to be rejected, we might give you a revised resubmit because we know you. We know the quality, your quality and so on. We don't want to waste a reviewer's time. And so if we don't know you very well, if we don't know your quality, we send it to a harsh reviewer and the harsh reviewer rejects the paper. And this was a frank, one review editor said point blank, he didn't hide it. The Americans and so on, they say it as it is. So this is where getting into a better network and so on, and obviously working hard is important, but the network will reduce the amount of work that you need to do and you make the right choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Colin. We will take now written questions from Q&A. We have a question from Abbas. Thank you, Prof. Khalid. So when you talk about similarity report, could you tell me about what could affect article acceptance, please?
Okay, so if the similarity is quite high, let's say above 20%, we look at the similarity report. And if we found like a large percentage came from one source, like 5% or more come from the same source, the article is more likely to be desk-rejected because of similarity.
Do you want to add something to Professor Colin and Professor Hafiz?
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to add to what Khalid just said. Apart from the similarity, I think somebody asked about the percentage match. I think Khalid suggests around 15%, something like that. But also, it's also about a significant match. Sometimes the percentage might be very low, very low, say 5%. But then there's a 5% match with one paper. Can equally lead to rejection. Now, let me share my experience. This happened to me before. This has happened to me at least maybe 1 or 2 times. And this happened to me because the paper matched with my own paper, one of my own papers. Because once, why this can happen? Because once you start writing, you have a way of writing, right? You have a style of writing. I mean, for me, when I see Khalid write paper, I can see this is Khalid's paper. And I can see my paper. And I can see Hafiz's paper, because we have a style of writing. Now, the challenge is that, you know, you use similar sentences, right? And all of that kind of stuff. So the chances are that you might just not even, you know, unconsciously be writing something that looks similar. So for the good example that I normally cite is, I'm very happy to write you this letter, full stop. If you put it, if you put this sentence through Turnitin, it will be 100% match. Okay, 100% match. But actually, you're just writing your own sentence, right? Right. So I think it's very important that you definitely put all your articles through Turnitin before you send it off, and minimize where there are similarities. Minimize it. There could be references that, you know, if it's 50%, but it's a references matching, it doesn't matter. But then if it is the test matching, the sample matching, things like that, the tables matching. For example, you write table. Table is, the word table will appear everywhere, and table is a match. So it's always good idea nowadays to put every paper through Turnitin. And whether you intend or not, and then look at it, the match and work on it. It's not, I don't think a match means that you have bad intentions. It's just the nature of the world, the publishing, documentation, which is all over the world and so on. So I think it's very, very important to always put your paper through Turnitin before you submit, and see, at least know where it is. Some journals may give you a chance to revise and say, look, there's a high match, but most journals, they don't even look at the match, they will just reject the paper. They don't even look at whether it matches. And I think Khalid talked about, they will say, you know, it matches these articles, or not all, you know, exclusively this article. No, some journals do not even look at it. They say they have no time, so we said reject the paper. So please, it's important to put it through Turnitin or any similarity check before you submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Colin. Professor Hafid?
Yeah, I would like to share an instance where similarities may occur. And for example, if someone started a project, collected data, and when they start, after doing the literature review, collecting data, start doing the analysis, and they realize this can be two papers actually. So let me slice this project into two, and then I'm going to send the first one to paper A and the second one to paper B. Let me finish paper A. So after we finish paper A, submit it, it's published. Now I'm working on paper B, but I'm using the same literature review, which I used to in paper A. So in this case, obviously, I'm going to plagiarize myself. And that happened in many cases of publishing from a PhD thesis, where a student may still not have the experience of writing fresh literature review, or just trying to professionally edit their literature review. So a copy and paste exercise will lead to plagiarism. Percentage can be 5% in some instances, it can be more, but the most important thing is when you find chunks of writing being taken from one source, and that's an issue. So it could be in literature review, could be in methodology, etc. So that's a real issue. But when journals reject a paper for plagiarism reason, they mention it clearly, and this is an opportunity for the researcher to go back and reconsider rewriting the paper or rewriting sections of the paper with fresh mind and fresh thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Hafid. We have a question here. A single person can publish it as a journal? Dr. Khalid?
Yes, of course. A single researcher can publish an article, no problem. So he can single alone or with other people as co-authors.
Okay.
Yeah, I just to add to it, I think there are publication patterns, and in the Middle East and in MENA region generally, the single authored articles are valued compared to joint authors, and sometimes there is, especially in Saudi Arabia, the number of authors reduce the importance of the paper. So I think you need to follow this, take this into account. But generally, I think it's a good idea to collaborate in public jointly, because there's a lot of benefit in that. So you think about it. I'm in UK, you are in Qatar, my colleague said he's in China, and another colleague is in Pakistan. If we publish and we all put in our database, university website, you have potentially 3-4 different audience. And this paper is more likely to be cited than if I alone in the UK, or you alone in Qatar, or you alone in Pakistan, or you alone in China. So that is one advantage. The other one is when you work together, the ideas, I think Hafiz talked about that anyway. The ideas are better. Somebody may be good at analyzing the data, somebody better at writing the paper, somebody. So this whole idea of joint research and learning is a good idea. It's a good way of developing yourself. You will learn from others. And that is how the real world is actually. The real world of work and everything it aids. But then the other last point really is that you can have a mixture. Okay, so you have a portfolio of a single authored paper, but you have a portfolio of multiple authored papers and so on. So when I have gone for interview, for example, they have asked me, okay, so why is this paper collaborated? But then I always point to them, okay, but I have published one paper on my own here, right? So you can answer different questions depending upon the setting that you find yourself. And so it's a good idea to publish as a single author, but I think increasingly, and given the how difficult it is very expensive and probably not relevant to be publishing so many single authored articles. Anyway.
Can I add to that one single thing? Coming from a different background, probably, some universities sometimes require, in order for the academic promotion, they actually require that you have 2 or 3 papers as a single author, in addition to 3 to 4 that is, can be a collaborative work or not. So I think whoever is asking, if you are in the process of getting the academic promotion, you need to go back and check the policies for the universities, because it is different from one university to another. There is a minimum number of articles sometimes where you are actually requested to have it as a single author.
Excellent. I think Hanan, absolutely. Yeah. That answers everything. Yes, excellent.
Yeah, I know it's so hard and tough to finish everything or the whole article alone. But as my colleague Dr. Hanan said, like also same my university, Arab Open University in Kuwait, the same thing. Sometimes we need to publish solo or single author to take a promotion. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hanan.
Thank you, Professor Colin and Dr. Hanan and Professor Khalid. Do you want to add anything, Professor Hafid?
No, I think my colleagues covered what need to be covered around this question. Thank you.
We have a question here. How the journal would know if the paper has been submitted to 2 or more journals? Is there any mechanism?
I think we answered this question.
Okay.
If the question is how the journal will know if the author submits the article to 2 journals at the same time, the author might be unlucky if the 2 journals send the same paper to the same reviewers. And this happened several times. So the reviewer will send back to the 2 journals, saying that I have received this paper twice from journal A and journal B. And in this case, both journals reject the paper.
Can I just add here, Professor Khalid? It's, as I said, it's exactly as if you are selling a product to a shop. So just think about it. You are selling the same product to 2 people and agreeing on a price with 2 people. So ethically, it's not acceptable. So, and journals are very clear. You have, when you submit, you have to take a declaration saying this article submitted solely to this journal. So submitting the same article at the same time to more than 1 journal is ethically unacceptable.
Just to add that this is absolutely number 1 thing that you shouldn't do, which is submitting to 2 journals at the same time. Nevertheless, there is a movement that is saying that the authors, the publishers are more powerful, too powerful. And that at some point, maybe there's a movement that's making the point that we should be allowed to submit multiple journals and tell all of them so that there's competition. There's competition on your part. Shift the power from the publisher to the author. This is not yet done. So please never, ever do that. Submit to one journal at a time. Nonetheless, if you get a revise and resubmit, or say reject and resubmit, and you receive the decision, and the journal is silent about whether you can resubmit, whether you need to tell them whether you want to resubmit or not, and you think, okay, this is not a fair assessment, and I'm going to try a different journal. I think in between that you can, but you have to, again, address some of the comments before you send it anywhere else. Other than that, please never submit a paper simultaneously at 2 journals or 3 journals. Some people do that, and chances are it goes to the same reviewers, and you lose both publication opportunities. Thank you.
All right, so Dr. Ahmed, should we move to the, we will take one of the participants, the attendees who are willing to open their mic. I'll go for Freeman Broby, I think, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Okay, just a minute.
Yes, please. Yes, please ask your question.
I think Freeman is muted. He's on mute.
Is he? Dr. Ahmed, unmute.
Yeah. Yes, I am waiting. Okay.
Okay, yes, please.
Go on, Dr. Freeman.
Okay, thank you very much, professors, for the presentation. That was very insightful. I have a question, but my question is more front end. I'm a fresh academic, and I'm fortunate to have 3 professors who are mentors to me. Professor Hafiz was my supervisor. Professor Kahed was my external examiner, and Professor Collins is my mentor. So, yeah. So
I am your co-author.
Yeah. So, it's actually, I'm with my fathers today. Yeah, but I have a question. I just finished my PhD, and my question is about, since the 3 professors have so much experience, I want them to share with us, how did they manage to balance the struggle between work and research, especially when you find yourself working in a teaching focused university, but your actual interest is in research. Like, you teach a lot and you still want to make time to be able to publish so that you end up progressing in your career. I think it will be very, very useful, even before we get to the point where we have papers which will be just rejected and things like that. If you could share your experiences with us, that would be grateful. Thank you.
So Hafiz, you can start as...
Yeah, okay. This is a difficult question. I know he wants to cause me trouble after he finished his PhD. Now, what you do is, can I talk about myself? I work 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. So that's what I do. And on the same time, I have to buy lots of presents to my wife, so she does not shout a lot on me. You have to have a balance. You have to think of your research as part of your career as an academic. So with like a university like Nottingham Trent University, where it's more teaching focused, you should find the time for yourself to do research, and research is use. So when you move to another university, or when you want to get promoted in the same university, your research is one of the key criteria that will be you'll be asked for. So sacrificing 1 day of your weekend, this is something we do as academics, or trying to negotiate with your head of department or line manager, where you can get more teaching in one semester, less teaching in another, or a free 2 days, for example, a week of teaching where you can do your research and you block yourself for your research. So that's this is the way. It's mainly how to find a balance between your teaching, your research, and your personal life. Thank you.
I agree with Dr. Hafiz's comments, so I don't have any additional comments to raise.
Okay.
Not because my contract is research, so I don't have teaching commitment for 5 years. So
Okay.
it's kind of a problem, but I try to make good balance between the research and my personal life. So I don't have any comments about teaching, but Colin, if you can add.
Yes, I think I would like to add to it. I think Freeman, I think the point you're making is very important, and also depends on the context. So I have worked in the teaching intensive university. I'm currently here in Southampton, and it's a little bit well, we would think that we are research intensive, although it doesn't make any huge difference. I think. Sorry, that's my son. Sorry, apologies. Now, and actually I was late to this because I went to do Sunday shopping, for the weekend, for the week coming, which is school is open. So you have to also think about how do you look at children. So I'm looking at my children and I'm making noise in the background a little bit. So I think it's quite challenging. Now, you have to prioritize. I think you have to have a timetable and prioritize. I think Hafiz talked about 25 hours. Probably that's true, more or less. But what are you doing in these 25 hours? Be clear about what you're doing. I think Hafiz has talked about, so I think having a timetable and be realistic about a timetable. So what do you want to do? When I came out of my PhD, I had my thesis, which was there. I think Hafiz talked about, and I had that problem of copying from my thesis and having this plagiarism match, right? Because your thesis, nowadays thesis is online. So once you copy something from the thesis and you send off, it's the same match. So in the first 2 or 3 years, I focused on my thesis, and I classified it into 2 or maybe 3 or 2. Let me say 2. I identify 2 main or 3 main quality papers from the thesis, which I thought I could publish them in, say, 3-star journal. And then I could see so many other parts of the thesis which I thought, well, you could publish in a 1-star or even a non-ranked or 2-star journal. And I spent, so while the quality papers take time, right? I mean, the review process is very rigorous. You get a lot of rejections, and when you have a chance for revising submit is a long. I wish I could share some of the comments. One day I think we can do something like that. And then, so I focused on these relatively high quality papers. It took longer time. Most of them took about, this is my son switching the light off. Sorry, apologies. Thank you. So what I meant is, I know that I'm working on some quality papers, it's taking time. And then I worked on my own. So those quality papers, I work with my supervisors, Professor Jordan Boat, Kwaku Upon, and some other people who were Tivin, most of you know Tivin, and so on, who were really experienced in the field, and they were helping me to negotiate the review process. And then I had a couple of smaller papers, which I was publishing on my own, because it was I had learned a little bit from my previous 1 or 2 papers. And I essentially focused on that while struggling with my lectures and seminars and so on. And I did this mostly, unfortunately, even in the weekends, because during the day, you have, especially when we start as a new lecturer, you don't have a lot of experience. So you are preparing your slides, your materials, your exam papers. Those in the UK, you know what I'm talking about. And you're barely ready for your lecture. Almost every lecture, you're barely ready. You know what I mean? Your first PowerPoint, and then you just go to the lecture room. So what happened is I did a lot of this kind of work during the weekends and the evenings. I also applied for a small grant, and that helped me in the school, like internal grant. It was about £3,000, and allowed me to. So apologies, my son is autistic, so he's just very lucky. This is like fun for him. He just like doing that. So you can see all these challenges, right? and so I also get that £3,000. I got an assistant. There was a master's student who was working in the school, like a postgraduate master's, and she helped me to collect data and and do some of the analysis and literature and so on. And that also helped. And remember, I was working with 3 senior colleagues, Stephen, Kwaku Upon, Jordan Boat, and they were very good. They would guide me quickly and so to do some things that, for example, when I receive the referee report, I say, oh, no, this referee report is very, very bad. They say, oh, no, take your time, calm down. Let's look at it point by point. So this is a bit of hard work. It's a little bit boring, but in the early years, this is what more or less works. Now, this obviously depends on your setting. In some settings, I think it's not just the teaching intensity, like say, Nottingham Trent. I don't know Nottingham Trent, but when I was in Huddersfield, for example, the teaching also changes rapidly. So the head of department comes, tomorrow, can you teach this new module? And then the next week is a new module. Okay, that one is crazy, right? So in this kind of setting, it's almost impossible to engage in publishing, to be fair. But if where there's a little bit of stability, where your modules in advance, and it's just a bit more stable, then your weekends and evenings, you're not still preparing for your lectures, right? You can be a little bit free. The last thing is to prepare in advance. So when I knew that I was going to start my teaching, I got my job in September. I started in November. And so what I did is between September and November, I prepared a lot of materials. I negotiated with the school. I got to know my teaching and so on. So I had a kind of a front load of work done. And that also gave me a bit of space when I started the actual work. So there are a lot of things that you might think about. A lot of this involves a bit of sacrifice. And I think that the trajectory from early years is almost like a slope. So the slope, as you go, the effort you need to put in goes down as you start. At the beginning, you might have to put in a lot because you are inexperienced and you have to put in a lot. And as you go down the experience, you need to put in a bit less through collaborations and so on and so forth. But nevertheless, you have to start from somewhere yourself because nobody wants to actually collaborate with you when they don't know you well, they don't know what you've done. So you still need to sort of a footprint. Anyway, a bit of a long answer, but I think this is really a very good question.
Thank you, Dr. Collins. Thank you. Okay, so we move
Thank you very much.
We will move to Dr. Jinan Mohammed. Dr. Ahmed, if you can just unmute her, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Thank you very much for the interesting topic. And I am very happy to meet you today. My question is about if you submit your article to a journal and the journal took time to review, long time to review your paper. So do you have the right to send them an email to cancel the submission in order to submit to another journal?
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's start with Professor Khalid, if you can make a comment on that, please.
Yes, Jinan, if you submit the paper and the paper is under review, you are lucky to avoid the disk rejection. So this is the first point. If it takes a long time, normally it takes between 3 months and 6 months. If you can't wait 3 to 6 months, I think you have the right to withdraw the paper from the journal. So it's no problem at all.
Okay. Professor Hafid,
that's a good question, actually. Before I withdraw the article, I would probably drop an email to the publisher. If I know who's the associate editor, I will email them. If not, I will email the journal office and say, this is the situation, can you give me update? And wait a week. If they don't come back to you, then you have the right to withdraw and submit somewhere else. But if you submit somewhere else, is there a guarantee your article is going to be published soon or sooner? So there is always a risk. I had to wait for one of my papers 5 years to have it published. It was accepted, and I had to wait 5 years to have it published. So I just thought, do I want to withdraw it? it's accepted, fine. I made the tick. So sometimes we have to wait. But as Professor Khalid said, you always have the right to withdraw. You can withdraw. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid and Professor Khalid and Professor Hafid.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Jamal. Okay, I'll take another question. Dr. Ahmed, should we take a question or?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll go with Malaka. Malaka, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Okay, we have Abbas Muhammad then with us. Okay. Okay, please go on. Mr. Ahmed, unmute me, please.
Sorry, I was talking, but I forget it's unmuted. Abbas, can you unmute your mic, please? Sorry, I press.
I'll try for myself, but I can't. Yeah.
Yes, I think you can hear me now. Thank you all professors, and thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for these very useful sessions. This one in particular was very important. My question is, if I wait for 5 years for my paper to get published, like what happened to Dr. Hafiz, won't my literature be so old? Will my paper still be of value after 5 years? Isn't there any risk?
Thank you. Dr. Hafiz, please.
Yeah, there is a risk actually, and that's exactly what happened with my article. After it was accepted, we did the amendment, and it took 5 years to be published. Then when they came to publish it, they came back to me and said, can you update the literature? And I had to update the literature, but luckily I was not asked to collect more data or to do anything else. So it was a matter of sitting down, to my desk and just update my literature. Yeah, so especially if it's like a policy paper, after 5 years, obviously, it will be out of date, but it happened.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Q&A.
Yes. Okay, we have a question here. It's a bit of a legal question as well. That's why I find it interesting. Does first author own the paper? And I'll leave it for the professors to answer. And then if there's anything else I can add from a legal perspective, I'll go on. Dr. Khalid and Professor Collins as well. Dr. Khalid, please.
Yes, I think the first author can get more credit compared with other authors unless the names are ordered alphabetically.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it depends. I agree with Khalid. Sometimes we go by alphabetical order, but sometimes the order is by contribution, and sometimes it's by seniority or junior. In my early papers, either I was the first author or I was I'm alone, single author. My supervisor said, well, as a junior author, your name needs to be there. So you have to be first author, even if you are not necessarily the main contributor. And subsequently, that is the approach I've taken, which is that any paper I write, my colleagues, normally junior, they are the first authors. But the paper does not necessarily belong to the first author. Or actually, I think the corresponding author probably has more weight, if you want to put it that way. But once a paper is published and your name is on it, I think you are an author. Of course, we know that in the promotion rounds, it may be different. Because if you're a first author, sometimes, it counts. It depends upon your institution. Again, you need to check. I think Dr. Hanan talked about that. You check your institution. So some institutions where your name appears is important. Whether you're a corresponding author is important. I think in Asia, if you're a corresponding author, for example, in China, if you're a corresponding author, it's important. It doesn't matter what your name is in the order of your name. In MENA region, it's more about how many authors and the order as well. So in the UK, it doesn't matter at all. Actually, co-author paper is more preferred. So you need to understand the policy of your institution, of the region, and of the context. Thank you.
If I may add something from a legal perspective here, basically, if you publish the paper, the journal owns the copyright in that. That does not take away your title as an author with the right to reuse it again, but not to republish it, because you do not own the copyright in it. So you have personal use over the paper, but you don't really have commercial use over the paper, which is two different things. Now, when you have multiple authors, the thing that we say in academia that as a first author, you have more credit, more points according to your policy does not really exist in law. You are equally based in front of the law, basically before the law. Everyone has the same copyright unless there is a written agreement otherwise. So that is just to answer that if the question was in relation to copyright. Dr. Ahmed, should we take another Q&A?
Yeah, let me take one. Odi Tamimi, first of all, I want to thank all the guest speaker, Dr. Khalid, Dr. Hafiz, Dr. Colin, and his informative presentation. As you know, that the top journals specialized in accounting are either British or American, and publishing in them for doctoral students who study outside those countries is not easy. My question is, if an in-depth scientific paper on accounting is published in high-quality journal, Q1 within Scopus, but its field includes accounting and economics, management, etc. In general, not just accounting. Is this good or not? Doctor, let's start with Professor Colin.
Very good question. It depends on what again, the context matters. In some institutions, you have to publish only in accounting or in your area, and so on. And in that case, the journal you're focusing on must be in accounting, right? I think in the Middle East, this is important. The journal you're publishing. But generally, you want to publish in high quality journals or high impact journals. You want your work to go into high quality journals. This is more applicable to me. So I don't mind particularly so much whether it's in accounting or it's management or it has to be business management. That's the way I see myself, or accounting, finance. So far as the paper fits the scope, and I think it is of the right quality to meet the quality of that journal and get it published in, I think it's fine. And generally, Scopus-based journals are good because that is where almost all the impact comes from. Despite, getting a citation in Journal of Accounting Economics is the same as getting a citation in Managerial Auditing Journal in Scopus. There's no difference in points. And they all count towards the QS rankings, for example, for universities. So that is my view. But again, this differs. So for example, in the US, you can't publish if you're an accountant, you can't publish in any other journal. Apologies, my son is switching the light off. So that's my view on that. It doesn't matter so much. It doesn't matter so much whether it is, I think what matters is that it's a good journal, peer-reviewed, good editorial board, and things like that. Has got an impact factor and all the things that you can think about. I think those are the things that I think is very good to consider. Although this is not the overall answer because it depends on your institution and their policies, right? So you need to read that and follow that policies as well.
Totally agreed. Also, there is a question from Magahid Abu Al-Fadl. Could you suggest a website for choosing the appropriate journal, Dr. Khalid?
I don't have a website in mind. What I can recommend is to look at your paper, the list of references, and see which journal you cited most. And then you can look at the scope and the aim of the journal. If it fit well, you can submit to this journal. If not, you can look at other journal you have cited in your paper. Professor
Hafiz, do you have any other techniques?
Yeah, Actually, I used in the past Elsevier publishers. They have kind of a check website where they request the title, the keywords, and the abstract. But the danger of this, because you are dealing with a computer, sometimes they suggest journals based on, they make match between your abstract and the scope of different journals. But as I said, because it's a computer, there is a risk they may suggest the wrong journals to you. So I would be careful to use these websites, and I would go with what Professor Khalid suggested, is check your references, see which journal you are citing most, and then obviously that's is an incentive to you to submit your article to that journal, and it's an incentive to the journal to consider your paper more seriously.
The last one that I would like to add is the ranking, the list, the ranking. There's a number of lists that exist. So the ABS rankings, the ABDC rankings. Your university or some regions may have their own rankings, but also in the MENA region, for example, Scopus-based journals are widely accepted. So those kind of sources could be helpful. They are not necessarily the right. There's not like a right or wrong answer, but generally those can be very helpful in terms of selecting your journal articles.
Thank you. If you mind me, I want to ask also another question, but far away from publication and research. It's about actually two questions. The first one, how we can build a good academic network. Dr. Hafid, let's start with you as your presentation.
Academic network, as I said, it's mainly building a friendship. I call it professional friendship. Be ready to give, be ready to support, be ready to just give care for others, and then when you need support, you will find it out there. So
but
this is
where exactly? So
from where? From a lecture like this, from a workshop, from LinkedIn. I am conducting a study now. It's something to do with oil and gas industry, and probably for those who know, it's the most difficult industry to conduct interview within. And I am managing with some difficulties, but I'm managing to recruit my interviewees from LinkedIn, which is, it's not social media platform. It's professional platform. But it's working for me. So if people know about me, know about my opinion, know about what I'm doing, my work, etc., then they will be willing to connect with me and then be willing to talk to me. And that applies to everything. So on Facebook, on ResearchGate, on every other platform, workshops, conferences, these general lectures, etc., they help.
Professor Colin?
Yeah, I think a very good question again. I think Hafiz have talked about all the most important places, conferences, virtual, social media, and all of that. But also think this way: you need to build the network from your department. Start from your department. There will be some people there that you know, and let's be honest, not all of us are helpful. Some academics are more helpful, some are less helpful, some are more approachable, some are less approachable. So I don't want to embarrass Khalid, but Khalid is one of the most approachable and helpful colleagues that you ever come across. I don't need to tell you, all of you know this.
Let me add something. From my, let me call it my godfather, Professor Khalid Husseini. When I was living in UK, in Portsmouth, and also we travel a lot in several countries around the world. So every time, how I build my network, always when we meet or eat lunch or dinner, always ask, who's this? Who's that? Who's this? Also, when we see in the conferences, networking, always they're asking, who's this guy? Who's this doctor? Who's this professor? So here I build the network. I know For example, if someone asks me about this major, also if it's specific in accounting, I can know. For example, Professor Hafiz in sustainability and this stuff, narrative, Professor Khalid, governance, and this stuff, Professor Colin. You know, I know it from asking what is this professor major, or what's his specific major. Also, I can I agreed with Professor Hafiz, the social media. The social media nowadays, the networking here and there, it's so big. But I really prefer LinkedIn because mostly it's academic, or let's say a professional people that we can deal with. That's what I prefer. And the second one, it's not a professional as much as LinkedIn. But I meant Facebook, but maybe because when I start my Facebook account, I build it as all my network is academic, 100% are academic. So I know when I post things, or when I read any of posts that is posted in Facebook, I know all of them professors, doctors, and all of them in my field. So you can build your network as how you want it. Thank you.
Excellent.
دكتورة حنان تمسكين.
Okay, ناخذ the Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have actually, most of them are thanking everyone who participated in this. And yes, we have a couple of requests to share the PowerPoint slides if possible. So if that is okay with the speakers, you can communicate with Dr. Ahmed, please.
شوفي بوسي.
والله ما أشوف الأسئلة، أشوف كلها.
Okay, let me help you.
Yeah.
Busi Fadi, I have two questions. Question one, is there a relationship between getting a disk rejection and withdraw a paper from a journal? This is the first question. So again, is there a relationship between getting a disk rejection and withdrawal a paper from a journal? Second question, if I get a disk rejection from, let's say, a journal A, and I have another written paper which I have taken into consider all the author, guideline, and scope and aim of journal A. Can I send this paper to journal A, or I can get another disk rejection? Thank you so much. I think she's talking about paper topic.
But Dr. Khalid already answered that.
Okay.
In some ways.
Okay.
Unless you have something to add, Professor?
No, just a short answer. There is no relationship between this and withdrawal. And when she withdraw, she needs to write the reason for withdrawal.
Yes. We do have actually a question from an engineer that would be of probably relevance to Dr. Hafiz, because you're in the industry now, right? So maybe you can help. How to approach for industry opportunity while you are being an academic?
I'm not sure if I need some clarification for the question. I'm in academia. I deal with a lot of professionals from the industry. So check who they are, what's their interest. If they match somehow to your interest, make sure you understand their language, because professionals speak different language from academics. So make sure you don't give them lectures and lessons, because it's hard for the managers to accept. So that's the way. Just be positive and use positive language. And it's I don't find it difficult to connect. And I believe if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Great, thank you. Dr. Ahmed, there is one last question, I think, maybe before we end.
Yeah, but let's have Branko.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
First of all, sincere thanks from the bottom of my heart. I am calling from Croatia and Serbia and Montenegro. And can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry for interrupting. And I would like to sincerely thank you for inviting me. I am 69 years old. And I would give some remarks based on my experience. And life experience is something we get when we did not earn any money. So probably I would exchange a lot of experience for some money in my backpack of my car. A French author in the late 50s, André Gide, Nobel Prize laureate in literature, said, "Nothing is so strong as the right idea when the right times comes." Buddha, 6 centuries ago, Christ, 21 centuries ago, Muhammad, 40 centuries ago, and all three of them 60 centuries ago, when they started their religions, they were a minority. So right ideas are revolutionary. Right ideas are not widespread. Right ideas will not give you the flowers and recommend you awards and will not put you at the top of the ladder. But right ideas and revolutionary and straightforward ideas would make a breakthrough and would make the progress, because what we see around us is the drastic change of the operating system globally and regionally and locally. So many things we have read in the journals, articles, are just the repetition, copy and paste of the previous experience. What's going on in front of us is rather new, something new. So I thank you sincerely for inviting me. Whatever I can do to contribute to the network building, I believe in that. And what you have said, I think that's something that senior professors should teach their young students at the beginning, before any cooperation starts, about morality, ethics, and rules of our profession. How to respect each other, how to respect and obey the rules. And I do not want to overextend my exposition, since I am programmed to teach in 45 minutes or 2 times 45. So whenever I do deliver lectures, I bring with myself 2 handsome, tall students to take me out of the hall. And I wish you a very happy weekend, happy life, and I'm looking forward for our future and fruitful cooperation. And whatever I can do, please count on my full assistance and help. That's all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Hanan, can I just say a word?
Yes, please.
My dearest friend, Professor Branco, thank you for accepting my invitation to join us and for your contribution. That's highly appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Ahmed, should we take the last Q&A?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the last Q&A is, I have a question from Sitara Fishi, I think. Okay, so is the affiliation of authors is important in disk rejection? Do editors consider this? So the name of the author, pretty much.
No, I think the name of the author or the affiliation doesn't consider for the disk rejection decision by the editors. What matters is
at least not by most of them, right? Because some of them they actually do.
Yes, I think I agree, Dr. Hanan. Professor Khalid is right, and as you know, he's very experienced. Nevertheless, Hafiz talked about networking, and I think that if you collaborate, particularly internationally, then your chances of publishing will equally be better. Some institutions will look at the journal, will look at the name of the institution, and will look at the name of the author. Unfortunately, the author's on it, and may equate it to quality. Remember that the editors receive 600 papers. They don't have too much time, right? So they are making very rapid decisions, and they're looking for the quality indicators. And which one of them may be the quality of the authors who have a record previously, right? So this may be, not necessarily will be, but maybe. And so it's all part of the mix. It's not the only thing, but it's part of the mix. I think the most important point here is the quality of the paper, which I think Khalid talked about at the beginning, getting to the end of his presentation. That is the number one. But if there is anything you can do to enhance your chances, getting international authors, getting different and all that kind of stuff, better affiliation and so on, who knows? Having a Harvard affiliation probably is better than Southampton, isn't it? So I guess it all helps. It all helps, I think.
Yeah, great. Okay, from my side, that's it, Dr. Ahmed, if you would like to take over.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Professor Khalid, Professor Hafez, Professor Colin, for your time and effort. On behalf of ITAR board members, Dr. Hanan, Dr. Ahlam, and me, Dr. Ahmed, also on behalf of Arab Open University Kuwait branch and all my colleagues here in Kuwait, I want to thank you from bottom of my heart for your time and effort, and also spend all this time answering all these questions. As you see, from all over the world, different university, different nationality, different genders that asking you guys and watching all these around maybe 3 hours and a half. So really, I want to thank all of you, and also I want to thank all the guests who watching today the international webinars, and also who is watching us in YouTube as well. Any last word before we ending today session? Professor Khalid Hussein, please.
Just, I would like to thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed, for webinar and for the 100 till now 100 webinars you have run, and I hope that you will continue such event, because this will share knowledge between all people who are interested in academia. So thank you very much to you and Dr. Hanan and Dr. Ahlam as well.
Thank you. Professor Colin.
Thank you very much. Very grateful to be to join this. And I think I saw that it was about 140, 130 people in it, and even now still over 100 people. So this is really highly successful, and well done to you, Dr. Ahmed and Dr. Hanan and Arab Open University for this work that you're doing. It's really excellent. Well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Professor Hafez.
Yeah, I would like to thank you, Dr. Ahmed, and your colleagues for organizing this very interesting session. Thank you to my colleagues, Professor Khalid and Professor Collins, and for the attendees as well. Wishing you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all. And yeah, today, alhamdulillah, we finished the session or webinar number 100, and inshallah, we promise all of you will continue offering and the seminars, the weekly seminars, and also workshop, conferences, and this stuff. Also advising any master or PhD student that need help, that we can link them to professors, doctors, that they help them volunteering just to help them and invest some of your from their time to help the students. So thank you so much, Professor Khalid, Professor Hafez, and Professor Colin, and inshallah see you soon in United Kingdom or any other conference around the world. Thank you so much, Dr. Hanan and Dr. Ahlam. Also, I want to thank all of you. If you have any last word, Dr. Hanan.
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure. I've learned a lot, and inshallah, we hope to meet you in person soon, someday.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.